It's November 9, 2020. I'm Todd Dunn. Today I'm aboard a 1936 wooden powerboat Tortuga to start the next project, which hopefully will be the last project for this fall. And that is a repair to the foredeck immediately in front of the cabin on the port side. And what I'm going to do is cut a hole in the foredeck, remove some bad wood, and then completely rebuild the foredeck in that area with painted tongue and groove planking that'll make the overhead on the inside of the boat, and a layer of marine plywood over that, and finally I'm going to rebuild the fiberglass on the deck. So let's get started. Oh, I want to apologize for the light quality in here. There's not a lot of light in the boat shed, but you know, that's what it is. So please bear in mind that I don't have a lot of light to work with. I'm aboard Tortuga now, and this is the area of the deck that I intend to open up. This is where the leak has been, and I'm going to come in to here, which is a plank boundary. And what I'm going to do, so that I know where I want to cut to on the outside of the boat, is I am going to take my drill here and just punch some holes through. And that'll tell me where my reference marks are. I think I'll take that one. There. And let's take this one a little further over here just to make sure I'm getting through. Okay. There are the outboard reference marks. Now I'll do another one in here, a little further in. And those holes will give me references to measure from for cutting. And I've got a tape measure here. On this side, I'm going to cut to the middle of this deck beam, which is going to be approximately 2 inches forward of that hole. And here, I'm going to cut as far back as I can, preferably to the middle of this deck beam, which would be from the forward hole about 5 1/4 inches. So we'll go up on deck and mark out the cuts and make them. That's pretty straightforward. I apologize for the small area of the shot. I've switched to my fast lens because there's very little light in here. But for the rest of this, we're going to be working on deck. Okay, what I'm going to do here is lay out the lines that I cut down below. And so I want to come 2 inches forward of this hole here, or 1.5 inches, and over here. And we'll get some things out of the way. And I'd like to cut through the fiberglass and the plywood underneath it to the middle of the next plank down below. So that's going to be 1.5 there, and 1.5 there. So let's get my straight edge and put some marks down here. So those are the cuts I'm going to make. And I know this deck consists of about an 1/8 inch of fiberglass and then approximately 1/2 inch of plywood. So I've set my little skill saw here up to 1/2 inch, which should go through the fiberglass and most of the way through the plywood. And I'll finish the cut through the plywood with an oscillating saw. So let's make the first big cut here. Okay, and once the cut is done, now we'll make the other way, which is cutting toward me. It's a little hard to do, but okay. Now I've got to make my cut this way, which is going to be mostly done with the oscillating saw, just because I don't have a lot of room over here. Saw up. Now, cut the other way. Final cuts I'm going to make are going to be parallel to the house. And I think what I'm going to do is come in here with the oscillating saw and make the final cuts. So let me get the oscillating saw set up and we can start making some cuts up here. Okay, now that I've made the major cuts, I want to use my oscillating saw to finish up the cuts, because obviously the skill saw doesn't leave a vertical edge. And before I do that, I'm going to tape off the mahogany cabin house so that I don't inadvertently mar it with any of my tools. And that's what I got to do right here. Get the dust off of it. And put some masking tape on there. I'm just going to build the masking tape up a couple of inches above the deck edge so that I have plenty of room for my tools to make cuts without hopefully marring the varnished mahogany. Just a little bit more back on the side, which you really can't see from where the camera is. And then we'll start making some cuts with the oscillating saw. Now, because when I re-fiberglass the deck, I'd like to have an edge to work to, I am going to leave just a little bit of the old deck right up against the cabin house. So I will cut to this masking tape here. On the side, I'll remove it completely because the deck butts up against the cabin house there, and I can seal that with pulp. So, start making a few cuts. Okay, I'm going to start by ending this cut over here so that my cut goes the full depth that I want. I'm going to try to do now is see if the fiberglass will pry up, because it's just attached to the plywood underlayer with polyester resin. Not so much for that. Fortunately, I have more screwdrivers. I expected the tools are going to go over the edge. If I get this sub in one piece, I can probably reuse it. I'm going to have to go over here and make a cut through, which is going to be easier to do off the boat than from here. So I'm going to climb off the boat and make the cuts I need to do over here off camera, just because it's going to be hard to set the camera up to show this. Well, I went a little crazy working off the boat. I removed the fiberglass surface of the deck. The underlay, which was just Luan plywood, which was stapled to the old overhead tongue and groove planking, and then I removed the bad planking, including underneath the edge of the deck at the edge of the house. The only thing I have left to do is back here at the aft end. That deck beam is in pretty poor shape, at least on the end of it, so I'm going to have to go down below and cut through that deck beam and remove the bad wood and install some new wood. So that's going to take a little bit. That's a 2 by 2.5 inch beam. And I don't have anything quite that big, but I think I can laminate something up pretty easily. So I got to do that, and once I get that deck beam replaced, I can start reassembling the deck and get rid of this little hole here. So I'm running a little late today, so what I'm going to do is just clean up and go home. It's about 3:30, and I told my wife I'd be home by 4. Over here is the piece of fiberglass that I removed, and I had cut a hole in it right out here at left edge to install a sister frame, and I think I'm just going to rebuild the deck surface and not reuse this piece of fiberglass. So it's going to become trash. But I'll keep it up here just in case I change my mind. So that's that. So I'll have to measure up that deck beam, which I'll do the next time I'm on board, and then set about replacing it. Sorry this was not a very informative video, but most of the work was done standing on a step ladder beside the boat and just hammering at it and prying at it with chisels and pry bars and making cuts with the oscillating saw there. So pretty straightforward. And at this point, I'm more or less ready to start the rebuild process after I decide exactly what I'm going to do with the bad end on that deck beam. Okay, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Seeing a little bit of destruction of a 1936 wooden boat. And If you haven't, please subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell. And don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Thanks again for watching.